March 11th, 2025. I hereby call the Elections and Campaign Finance Subcommittee to order. Please open the roll, if you would, Madam Clerk. Let's please take the roll. If you're here, please fill it out. Mr. Bricken?
Oh, thank you. And warmed up that too.
Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Mr. Chairman, you have 6 members present.
Thank you. Do any members have any personal orders before we begin? Seeing none. Today we have 8 bills on the calendar. And we have asked you to, there is one, Chairman Todd is running a few minutes late. He's in a meeting over at the Capitol. And item number, I believe, item number 5 today, Todd Warner is asked to be taken up first since he has to vote another committee. And so we will skip over to, I believe, is that correct, item 5? Let's get there one moment. Too many pages. All right. HB 0139 by Warner. Please tell us about your bill. Also, I believe you have, do you have any amendments?
Yes.
What's your amendment number?
The amendment I have is 004113.
That's what we got. We have a motion. We have a second. You want it on the bill?
Yes, sir. Please
Let's
rewrite
attach
your
it to
bill.
the bill. Any opposed? If not, we're voting to attach it to the amendment 004113 to Bill 139. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. It is ayes favor. It is on the bill. All right, tell us about your amended bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And if I may take a personal privilege here, I've got a group of fine ladies here from Williamson County, and if y'all can make them feel welcome, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. Thank you. House Bill 139. The amendment makes a bill consideration of the most recent definitions from a multitude of sources, including but not limited to the National Academy of Science Engineering. This amendment is put forward clearly to define the parameters included in the bill. The use of internet voting as a viable option for use in election has been repeatedly deemed high risk by multiple sources, both federal and private, including the Department of Homeland Security, the CISA, which is Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, the EAC, Election Assistance Commission, and the FBI, and the NIST, the National Institute for Standards and Technology. The NIST actually stated the digital return of a voted ballot by the voter creates significant security risks to confidentiality of the ballot and voter data. The integrity of the voted ballot and the availability of the system, we view election ballot return as high risk. The NIST quote is only one of a myriad of organizations that affirm that the use of this technology in an electoral process is high risk. Tennessee, as a leader in the security of elections, should codify in law the prohibition and the practice, therefore, ensuring that no county or government entity enters into any agreement for this practice. And that's been the internet voting. With that, Mr. Chairman, I renew my motion. And I think we have some testimony.
Yeah, we have 2 individuals that's asked to speak. First up is Andrea Gomez. Speak in favor of the bill. Oh, we need to, we need to go out of session. Now, all those in favor of going out of session, say aye. Opposed, nay. We're out of session. Please state your name. And you'll have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Okay.
You're on.
Okay.
We control it up here now.
Oh, thank you. All right. Well, thank you, Chairman Rudd and members of the committee. My name is Andrea Gomez. I am the chair of Tennessee Fair Elections. That is a statewide coalition of volunteer citizens who devote their time throughout the year to study election integrity issues and work to promote policies for securing our elections. And as mentioned by Representative Warner, we already do a lot of things very well in the state of Tennessee, but one of the things that we do look at is what's coming down the pike. And we believe that internet voting is one of those things that is going to be something in the very near future that we will have to deal with. So this bill, HB 0139, is specifically written to prohibit the transmission of a completed ballot via the internet. This bill is also supported by Heritage Action, and they've stated that they see that internet voting is a threat to internet security, or to election security. This bill does not apply to current provisions to the distribution of a ballot as noted for UOCAVA voters, those are overseas military and their dependent voters, or those exempted in last year's legislation that passed for persons with print disabilities. The Department of Homeland Security and 3 other federal agencies told states and election officials that electronic ballot return creates significant security risks to the confidentiality of ballot and voter data, integrity of the voter ballot, and availability of the system. We view electronic ballot return as high risk, and no new guidance has been issued indicating that internet ballot return is secure. There are currently no federal guidelines to regulate internet voting. Voters would be open to vulnerabilities such as spoofing, malware on personal devices, personal security penetration by bad actors, and coercion, just to name a few. Internet voting cannot be secured. This bill would ensure that no action may be employed by the state or county election officials to use ballot delivery systems through state or third-party vendors, meaning that no county election official could enter into a contract with such a company for these services. And I just urge that you take this matter very seriously. The Tennesseans do not want to be voting via the internet, and I urge you to vote no on vote yes on HB 0139. No on internet voting. Thank you.
We'll have any questions from the committee? Mr. Powell?
Are you aware of any states or cities that are doing internet voting?
Not anything that's standing out that I know of, but I do know that the other state coalitions that we partner with and that we work with, we are all watching this transpire in the near future. It's coming.
Any other questions? Oh, excuse me, Mr. Wright?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I appreciate the presenter being here. Not only do you have focus, but you've put feet on it today. Do you see anything that the state of Tennessee is anticipating doing which would bring in internet voting?
Well, I would say that when we start talking about elections being convenient rather than secure, we're starting down that dangerous path. I would just say as a culture, we are kind of leaning in the direction of doing more and more online, which comes with its own issues. And so it just appears quite obvious that moving in the direction of internet voting is a direction that some would push us into for the sake of convenience. We are seeing, even just with the passage, and I'm not opposing what y'all passed last year, which would make that ballot, not the cast ballot, but the blank ballot available via the internet. We already do that for UOCAVA voters. We already do that for the individuals with print disabilities. So we just need to be careful that we don't open it up to now we're returning a cast ballot via the internet. That's the threat.
And are you seeing that we are traveling in that direction, the state of Tennessee?
I see that we have an opportunity to get ahead of it.
But we're not there yet. And even when you say convenience voting, I don't know that convenience voting is tied to voting on the internet.
Well, it definitely shouldn't be.
That
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to-
I'm in total agreement with you. And I just want your idea or opinion of where we, Tennessee, are going wrong right now. And I don't think that we can really point to something that we, the state of Tennessee, are implementing, which is going to let us vote on the internet.
I would say there are a lot of factors that influence the decisions that are made regarding elections. And we know that there are NGOs that are already going to be pushing for this type of method of voting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Do you feel that this is in any way going to go against any of the handicap, or any of the blind, or anything that we've passed in the past, any other exceptions?
I don't think so. I mean, those individuals are voting now, and we have a provision for those people with the print disabilities that they can receive their ballot via the internet and electronically, but they're not returning it. The threat is in returning cast ballots
Are there
via the internet.
any other questions before we have someone else to give testimony? Any other? Seeing none. Thank you. Next is Coordinator of Elections, Mark Goins. There you are. Please state your name and title.
Mark Goins, Coordinator of Elections. Am I on?
You are on.
Okay. So I've met with Representative Warner a few times on this legislation, and we've suggested an amendment, but I know he's working with some other individuals, and that wasn't acceptable. Let me stay unequivocally, so there's no confusion. There's no movement by the Secretary of State's office to go to internet voting. We will not do so. I don't support it unless y'all tell us to do so. But if you tell us to do so, we will do that. But at this point, there's no movement to do that. I want to make sure there's no confusion out there. Here's the issue, and this is the language that's troublesome. There's some other language as well, and it's not about receiving the ballot where we've had some breakdown. The breakdown is this talks about an official election ballot must not be marked, and how the ADA print disability blind ballot works is it's a fillable ballot sent to someone who can't see. And by definition, they can't mark that ballot. That's the reason the legislature passed this law. So they have an electronic means to mark that ballot. That ballot is then sent back through regular mail and it's received. This legislation would stop that process. And don't just take my word for it. The Disability Rights of Tennessee, they also have sent a letter raising the same concerns. And the Tennessee Disability Rights of Tennessee and the Tennessee Association for the Blind, they work very hard to pass this legislation to allow someone who can't see that ballot to independently mark it. And so anyway, I can't. If you pass this legislation as it's written, it is contrary to state law. We will get sued and we will lose. That's how that will work. The other thing is there's some language in there that talks about a ballot not being transmitted by election management system. For those that's in the military, they also, under state law, they are allowed to receive their ballot electronically, but that ballot has to be regularly mailed back. It is not voted upon through the internet. This has language in there that gives me pause about how we're going to vote military voters. The first version of the bill excluded military voters, but the new amendment, when it came on, it actually deletes that exception. So that exception is no longer in there. So anyway, we don't support internet voting. We don't connect our voting machines to the internet currently. It's not a philosophical difference. It's just this bill was written to go a lot further. And it appears to me that the one of the ultimate goals of this was to get away from any type of electronic marking of a ballot. You've got some folks that want hand marked ballots and hand marked ballots only. Low vision individuals, they need that assistance.
Is there any question? I think Mr. Leatherwood, you had a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to be clear, to make sure I understand, Tennessee law now does not allow internet voting for the general public, and would it take legislation in order to enact internet voting?
Oh, I definitely think it would. There's certainly nothing that authorizes it currently for a machine to be brought into a voting machine specifically. It can be connected to the internet with optical scanners. You can't even have the capability to have wireless communications. And so it depends on, I do think for anyone, in fact, I do know one state that has gone, at least one state that's gone in this direction. They had legislative approval, if I'm correct, but it's not something on our radar. If the legislature wants us to do it, once again, we would do it, but it's not something Secretary Hargan and myself envision for the voters of Tennessee to vote through the internet.
Mr. Bricken?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It really is a kind of a sidebar statement that that I would like to get a confirmation, because 4 years ago in the general election, then we got a lot of calls from constituents concerned that our voting machines were connected through the internet to the central election commission, blah, 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 and someone could hack in. For the record, as far as I know, none of our machines, election machines, are connected through the internet today.
That's correct. For the state of Tennessee, we are not connected to the internet. I can't speak for other states, but certainly for Tennessee.
Any other questions while we're out of session? Oh, Mr. Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for clarity, I'm trying to sum it up in my own mind. So if I'm listening correctly, there's no internet voting now.
Correct.
There's no plans to have internet voting unless this General Assembly approves it, which is not likely.
Correct.
And the bill, as you said, conflicts with current regulations or current laws. Could you expand on that last part?
Yeah, the main thing it conflicts with is the legislature just a couple years ago passed legislation that says we're authorized to electronically send a fillable ballot to someone who has vision issues. And the vision issues are defined. Basically, you're blind or pretty close to it. That individual that receives that ballot, they can have readers. And so they're getting this ballot electronically, and then they're able to mark that ballot because it's fillable themselves based off what they're hearing. And then once they print that ballot, it comes through, it is sent to us through regular mail. So it's not electronically sent to us, but it is marked. And this bill actually says that you can't mark a ballot that way. That's what this language says. And I know that the disability organization, that this is something that they're very interested in there as well. And they have stated this in writing, that they see this the same way that I do.
Follow up.
So if the bill would pass, we would undoubtedly face a lawsuit.
Oh, I think so. I don't know how you would avoid, because now you're going back to, we've ran through an election. The folks that have utilized this ballot, they're used to filling out this ballot independently. And now you're going to take that away. And at the get-go, without changing the Print Disability Act, you've got a conflict. So even if you didn't change the print disability, it's the way the law works in this field. It's very difficult to, once you grant something to someone, to kind of take it back. And now we've got a situation where, in fact, I'll tell you that the Disability Rights of Tennessee, they supplied some court language from another state where the state got in trouble for not allowing those that were blind to mark their ballot. It was not a Tennessee case. It was a Maryland case, but actually they sued the state election director. It's the National Federation of the Blind versus Lamone. She's a retired state election director. I do know her. And that was a Fourth Circuit case.
Very good. Thank you for the clarity. Thank you, Chairman.
Let me ask you, is there a current state law either authorizing or preventing a county from initiating this type of practice?
They're not authorized to do it, period. I mean, so
Yeah.
it wouldn't be allowed, they wouldn't be allowed to do so, to receive the ballots. Once again, there are instances where we, specifically for military and ADA, we transmit those ballots electronically, but that's permissible under the law. In fact, for military and overseas, federal law requires that.
Okay.
Doesn't require you receive them. You have to be able to offer those services to send.
Is there any other questions? Seeing none, while we're out of session, no objections, we'll go back into regular session. Thank you. We are in regular session. Back to the sponsor of the bill.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman and committee. Again, let me be very, very clear. The intent of this bill is not to keep anyone with a disability from voting. The intent of this bill is not to be able to return a completed ballot by the internet or by phone or Wi-Fi or anything. And we want to talk about lawsuits. This state gets sued all the time over stuff that we do and decisions we make up here, some good, some bad. The intent of this bill is to make sure that a ballot is not sent back in via the internet. Plain and simple. That's what the bill does. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And with that, I'll stand for any questions or renew my motion.
I would suggest and move, depends on the will of the committee. I would suggest there's parts of this bill that are actually very good that we can do something with. I would suggest make a motion that we send this to final counter 2 into this session so we can have time to see if we can work something out, improve it in some way. Any objections to voting? The voting is to send to final counter 2 HB 0139 by Warner. Although we'll put it on the board and we'll be voting. All those vote. Please take the vote.
Mr. Chairman, you have 6 ayes, 1 nay.
Thank you. Bill moves to final calendar 2, and we'll see if we can get the challenge, see if we can work something out.
Thank you, Chairman.
Now we are back to, Leader Lambert here? He had to step out. He'll be back. I guess we'll go back to top of the, let's see, item number 1 by Chairman Todd. He is in the room. We have HB 0886 by Todd, and we have a motion and a second. Do you want to, now we have a, I believe you had some amendments, but you have a corrective untimely filed amendment that's your own, and you want to put it on the bill? We need to, do any objections to voting to have a place an untimely filed amendment onto the bill? Yes.
Technical correction? Or does it make the bill?
Chairman Todd?
It does make the bill, but for the, compared to the version that you already have that was timely filed, there are just a few technical corrections in there to clarify some language that wasn't hardly clear.
It's not changing the intent of the
No,
bill?
sir, not at all.
Can you walk through those changes?
Certainly.
Go ahead.
So, let's see, I don't have them highlighted, but looking here, there was, I know, one word. Let me see if I can pull up a highlighted version that I had that will help a lot. The drafting code that I have that I'm working off of is 5133, just so you know, we're on the same thing here.
Yes, 5133 is what I have.
All right. So in section 3E1, we've added, let's see, make sure I read this correctly. We went from at the time of initial registration, no, excuse me, that's what we're changing it to at the time of initial registration. Let me look at the previous draft and tell you what it's changing from at the time of initial registration. So we're just talking about clarifying that's at the time of initial registration. And then in number 2, this would be still in section 3. We've added a section here that is clarifying a person who was registered to vote prior to the effective date of this act may designate the statewide political party or recognized minor party with which the person intends to affiliate during the registration period under 2-2-109. A change in such affiliation must be accomplished pursuant to Section 7. So it's clarifying. There was a question that we've been working with the Secretary of State's office on of exactly how a person can register. This is dealing with the initial registration.
Okay.
So it's just clarifying that. And then the next item is in Section 6B1. And that is where it says the voter declares allegiance to the political party in whose primary the voter seeks to vote and states that the voter intends to register. We're cutting out the last part of that sentence just for clarity and making it conform to the rest of the language in this draft. And I believe the last item is in Section 7B. Find the correct part in the sentence.
Party for which individual election must match the party that is the primary ballot.
It says the first primary election in which the individual participates after the effective date of this act. And we're adding the words or during the registration period under 2-2-109, just kind of completes that. And then right under that in C, to update a voter's party affiliation, it's changing the one word to change a voter's party registration. Make that very clear. We're not just updating where it's literally a change.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's a pretty momentous bill, so just want to make sure I understood it.
Everybody
Thank you.
get a copy. It sounds like it's mainly a clarification what you're doing. We're still on whether we're going to allow an untimely filed amendment. Is there any other objections to voting? Would you need to ask a question? Okay. So moved. Made a motion to vote on this untimely filed amendment to adopt 5133. We're voting to allow it. Then we'll vote on the actual amendment. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. We can now vote on an untimely filed amendment, which you have explained. You have amendment number 5133 to attach to 0886. Is that what you want to do?
Yes, sir, it is.
All right. Hear a motion on that? I have a motion and second. All those in favor of adapting the 5113, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Amendment is attached to the bill. Now we're back on the amended bill. Is there any what else you've explained the changes? You want to explain the bill?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The bill
And the
as
intent.
amended. The bill is amended. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and the committee. The bill authorizes party affiliation on voter registration records beginning November 1st of this year. We're giving the Secretary of State's office and the county election folks time they need to make the adjustments to databases and their part of the deal to make sure this works properly. For persons who are not registered to vote prior to November 1st, if they're not registered to vote, they can register as a member of the party at the time they register.
Yeah.
So there'll be a spot on their form where they literally check if they want to register with a party or not. For persons who are registered to vote prior to November 1st, they can add party registration to their voter registration during the voter registration period, which ends 30 days prior to an election, or when they show up to vote for the very first primary after November 1st. So if they waited 20 years from now to show up to a primary and they don't turn anything in, then at that primary, they will have that option to sign up to register with that party. But so this allows anybody and everybody to register to vote or register with a party if they so desire. After a person is registered as a member of the party, any changes in party affiliation must be done in writing or mail or in person to the election commission no later than 90 days prior to the primary in which the person intends to vote. So this gives the voters a definite time period before an election, a primary election date, that they know they can change their party registration. After November 1st of this year, a person wishing to vote in a primary election will only be able to vote in that party primary for which the person is registered. As most of you already know, our primaries are closed in this state by law. Each party is a private organization that determines what its membership is. And this just adds a component into law. Many of your constituents already think they're registered, quite frankly. And I've talked to Secretary of State's office and Mr. Goins about this many times, and he tells me about how many phone calls they've gotten over the years saying, I want to change my party registration. And we had to explain there is no party registration. This will take care of that, where folks will know for sure, and they'll have a mechanism to change if they want to change. So with that, I'll be glad to take any questions about any other fine details here.
I guess there'd be one minor correction to that is we actually, in Tennessee law, are registered. We're automatically against our will registered to be independents.
Unaffiliated, yes,
Yeah.
sir.
So, Mr. Powell.
Thank you. First of all, I appreciate you running the bill. I'm philosophically opposed to it just because I think that a couple different things. One is we've operated under the system for a lot of years. I think it's been very successful. I think this is a pretty momentous change to now require this. The other thing is, and I hear from a lot of people who are very independent minded and moderate, and they like the ability, they might like a Republican candidate one time, they might like a Democratic candidate another time, and it changes. Sometimes they even vote independent. And I think when you require this, you tend to box people in and give them less independence to sway one way or the other. And then the final thing that really concerns me with this is going back to that. I know we often talk about the divisive partisanship that's going on in our country, and I think something like this is just going to add to it. I've always been in favor of the way we do things in Tennessee. I don't like that other states do it this way. So just philosophically, those are probably, feel free to respond to it if you wish.
Thank you. Any other any other questions on Todd? Well, I will. I was just asking the committee if they had any before I go back to you.
Okay.
I have one thing. Now you under current, it's the bill only. I like the bill. The only thing it makes me sad because if your bill's applied, my sign bill where they're posted that you're in violation of switching parties goes away. It'll have to be taken down because we'll have closed primaries. But let's see, you have what I think you already said. Did you say 90 days just before an election to switch?
Yes, to change
Okay.
parties, yes, sir.
Well, that's all the questions I had. I was going to give it back to you to comment on the legislation.
Well,
Oh.
I will ceremonially frame a copy of that notice and put it in my election office if you so desire, sir.
I think we have Mr. Leatherwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, some of our races in Tennessee are nonpartisan. So saying in August, that's primary for state and federal. It can be the general election for county races, some municipal races. This legislation would have no impact on those nonpartisan races. Is that correct? They would still have those nonpartisan races on their ballot, whether they chose a Republican primary in August or a Democrat primary in August. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
And one other question. For those general elections, my understanding is this legislation would have no impact either. If somebody wanted to vote for the Republican nominee for mayor, they could, general election. If they wanted to vote for the Democrat nominee for sheriff, they could do that in the general election. Is that correct? So you can vote for whatever party you wanted to, the nominee from whatever party you wanted to in that general election. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. This doesn't change anything in the general election. This is literally currently what we have under state law is it's against the law to vote in a primary election that you're not a member of that party.
Yeah.
That's the state law. Now, the difficulty is enforcing that. Every DA will tell you, how do I know what someone's intentions are, what their affiliation is as far as their allegiance? They're pledging their allegiance to that party. That's in their head. I can't prove what's there or not. We see more and more issues across the state with individuals and groups advertising, literally publicly advertising, oh, you can cross over. Nobody can prosecute you for that. You can literally violate state law and there are no repercussions for that. And this will finally I guess, get that under control is what our goal is. And as far as the comment previously, and I appreciate your comments, there is no requirement. No one's required to do this. It is literally an opportunity. If someone says, I want to register with that party, I can. If I want to remain unaffiliated, I can remain unaffiliated. There's no obligation whatsoever, but it literally gets us back into compliance at that point with what our state law already says, that if you're not affiliated with that party, you can't vote in the primary. They're literally private organizations. And just like we don't allow members off the street or from the Exchange Club to go over to the Rotary Club and elect their slate of officers every year, this is the same principle. It's a private organization.
Mr. Bricken?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a kind of operational question. The structure of your bill, is it crafted from any other states that are running parallel closed primaries? And just curiously, in the U.S., do you know how many states have similar closed primaries?
I believe there are 30 other states that I'm getting motions from the audience that have someone's done a lot of research on that. I'm not familiar with that. I've not crafted this to mimic anybody else's bill or law. Quite frankly, tried to tailor it specifically for our situation in Tennessee and worked very closely with Secretary of State's office and Coordinator Goins has just bent over backwards, spent a lot of time. His staff has spent a lot of time with me back and forth trying to get these things right, answer questions, and going back on different drafts to make sure we've got it right and we don't make a mistake.
Mr. Powell?
If I could, I have a follow-up question. So if I wanted to vote in the next primary election, say in August 2026, for governor in the Democratic ballot, you're saying I would not be required to register as a Democrat?
In order to vote in that primary under current law, you're required to be a Democrat, pledge your allegiance to that party. That's under state law now. This just says in order to vote in that primary, you would have to be registered with that party. And at that moment, that'll be the first primary probably that you're voting on. Depends on I don't know what else is on the schedule for next week, next year. But if that is the first one, then you're going to be presented with the same form you are today, I believe, that says which party ballot do you want? And at that moment, there'll be a statement there saying, I'm pledging my allegiance and joining this party, registering with this party.
So I guess my only contention would be at that point, you are required then to pledge your allegiance. I understand you can do it mentally. There's a difference between actually doing it. But again, I think it could potentially have a chilling effect of somebody that wants to, because they're moved by a candidate. That's I know multiple people, they're cross-party voters. I don't think it's because there's anything wrong. They like one candidate one year and they might change their mind the next. And I think those people are really critical to our democracy. Again, that's my one concern.
Even though I was hoping you were going to call for the question, I will answer that. That I believe the 90-day period before an election, you already know who's running. So if you want to change, they can literally send in that form and change and vote for that candidate. So it still allows that.
Question on the bill.
Question on bill, any objections? Please open the board for voting. We'll be voting on the amended 0886. All those in favor say aye, opposed nay. Please take the vote.
Mr. Chairman, you have 5 ayes, 2 noes.
Thank you. Bill passes. It goes on to state and local full. If we could inconvenience you for one moment, we had to skip Leader Lamberth and he's got to get to a meeting. If we could take up item number 6 or item number 3 on page 6 of my instructions here. We have a motion on 0069 by Leader Lamberth. Do you have amendments you want to place on the bill?
If you could do amendment code 004931.
That's what we have. You need that on the bill?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind.
Is it a subsidy bill or amendment or?
It is subsidy. It rewrites the bill and makes the bill.
All right. Although any of those opposed have put the amendment on the bill. We have a motion on the bill. Have a second on the bill. All those in favor of adapting amendment 004931 to 0069, say aye. Opposed, nay. Amendment is on the bill. Please tell us about your amended bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Very simple and straightforward. Obviously, during the special session, we passed a bill that contained a portion of this, thus the amendment that says that if you have a driver's license in this state and you are a lawful resident but not a U.S. citizen, that will have a mark on it. It'll look slightly different and will not be eligible for proof of citizenship for purposes of voting. So that driver's license will no longer work for that. But there's a bit of a larger problem, and we need a portal. Right now, when somebody goes down and they register to vote, they fill out a form, they register to vote, and for the most part, they're registered. We had 15 individuals in my county and Sumner County that were recently prosecuted for both registering to vote and voting as convicted felons. One of those gentlemen called me and actually told me his story, shared with me what was going on with him. 30 years ago, he had been convicted of a felony. He thought that his voting rights had been restored. He'd never actually done so, but he thought, man, it's been 30 years. Surely to goodness, I'm okay. He went down and registered to vote, and his case is concluded now, by the way. He was prosecuted for felonies and did plead on those cases. I did not represent him as an attorney. Someone else did. I didn't think it'd be appropriate for me to get involved in that type of thing as his state rep as well. So he called me as his state rep after that and said, look, my case is done. This happened. He's now a convicted felon again. But why on earth did we let him register to begin with? Because when he went in to register, he was given a paper form and they said, have your rights been restored? And he said, well, I don't know. I think so. And they said, well, if you think it is, you just check right there. And look, that's not on the person he was talking to. That's on us. We should have a better system for that. So if someone is an illegal immigrant or a convicted felon, that it is on the front end stopped. Now, in that same election, and I'm not saying that this gentleman or any one of those 15 people actually changed a race in my county, but a county commission race ended in an exact tie in my county, while we know that there were at least 15 convicted felons that were on the rolls. And I don't know how many people that potentially were on the rolls that were legal residents, but not U.S. citizens. Now, we've solved part of that problem, but fortunately, the Secretary of State has stepped up and said that they have a grant fund where they can work with TBI and safety to develop this portal. I just think we shouldn't put people like that gentleman in that place. He's a grandfather, and I'm going to tell you, a heck of a nice guy. And when he told me about this circumstance, I thought, we should do something about that so that folks on the front end, now, if they've gotten their rights restored, that's great. They can go and register to vote. But if they haven't, they shouldn't be allowed to go down that road and be really given a false sense of security on it. And in some circumstances, be prosecuted for something that they really didn't intend to do. So, Mr. Chairman, that's what the bill does as amended. And I just think it continues to improve our final election security and integrity.
Mr. Powell?
Just a question. Would this system also be able to keep candidates who are convicted of felon from appearing on the ballot?
Leader?
This deals with those that are actually voting, not folks that are running. So these would be for folks, this would be a portal that when you go to register to vote, it would check as to whether or not you have been convicted of a felony or whether or not you're lawfully a U.S. citizen. And that's what it would check. Those are the two things it would check. It has nothing to do with someone running.
Any other questions? Mr. Bricken?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I see the effective dates upon signing in the law. Are you got clarity, I guess, from the Secretary of State's office that the portal law will be up by the next election, which I can't remember when that's coming up?
Leader?
Well, for us, it's all the time. We're state representatives. We never stop running. It's every other year. But the goal would be, and it's in the amendment in the first paragraph, even though the effective date is upon signature, that's for them to start working together with safety and the TBI by January 1st of 2028. So next year's election, they probably don't have enough time to get that up and rolling. But by the 2028 election, we believe that we could get that up and done by then.
Any other questions of the sponsor? Seeing none, we are, if you are ready, sponsor, unless there's no objections, we'll be voting on the amended bill of 0069. Madam Clerk, please open the board. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. Please take the vote or vote. Now you can take the vote.
Mr. Chairman, you have 6 ayes, 1 no.
The bill as amended, 0069, moves on to state and local 4.
In there, I'm supposed to be in 3 places at once and I'm only managing one at a time. So thank y'all.
Mr. Todd, you're back up on your next bill, item number 2, HB 0888. We have a motion. We have a second. You have a amendment.
Yes, this amendment makes the bill. It's drafting code 1075.
That is what we have. I'll have a motion and a second on the amendment. Motion and second on the amendment. You want to attach the amendment to the bill?
Yes,
Does
please.
it make the bill or is it an addition?
It makes the bill.
If there are no objections, we'll be voting on the, that's the drafting code for the bill, which is what I have. So that's not the amendment, is it?
Okay, there is no amendment for this bill.
Okay, that's what I was thinking, but, okay, so we both are looking at the drafting code of the
Sorry.
actual bill. All right,
My
so there
mistake.
is no amendment.
My
to the bill.
mistake, sorry.
All right, you want to tell us about your bill?
Yes, please. Thank you. This has 3 main sections, 3 main purposes to it. First, prohibition of foreign influence. It prohibits a foreign national from making a donation, expenditure, or solicitation to influence a constitutional amendment measure. It also prohibits them from directing or controlling the decision-making process of a Tennessean in the process of a constitutional amendment. The second big thing, there's a civil action by the Election Finance Registry. It authorizes the Registry of Election Finance to bring civil action against anyone believed to violate this law. Statutory damages can be awarded up to double the amount of their prohibited contribution or expenditure, or up to 3 times that for willful violations. And the third thing, it protects lawful donors. Lawful donors to tax-exempt organizations have a right of privacy in their donations, and in any investigation of alleged violations will occur in a manner that shields the identity of lawful donors. This prohibits state or local government entities from disclosing to the public any information revealing the identity of any donor or to a tax-exempt organization unless the information is regarding an entity prohibited by this bill. Willful violations constitute a Class A misdemeanor, punishable by up to 11 months, 29 days, and/or a fine not to exceed $2,500. So those are the 3 primary things this bill does.
Let's see, questions? I know, Mr. Powell?
And I appreciate some of the parts of this bill. What concerns me is this is only going to increase the amount of dark money in our campaigns. And, I think that there should be disclosure. I've seen dark money involved in races I've been involved with. And, I think those that are doing those types of actions, we should know where that money comes from. And so, one part of this is basically saying we're going to keep people from doing, and I agree with that, the foreign entity part. But then we're shielding other parts. So how do we even get to the bottom and know truly where it's coming from? They seem to contradict one another, but I feel like this other part is going to just increase the amount of dark money in campaigns.
Mr. Todd?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe right now, those donors are already protected their privacy. And this just says that we're continuing to protect their privacy, even in an investigation, unless they're part of one of these prohibited entities.
And you have a follow-up?
And I get that. I guess my question is, why would you want to shield somebody in an investigation if people really wanted to get in and look and figure out if there was improper activity? Now we're even closing that from investigations. And I get from the point of shielding things from the public, but if there is reason to investigate, why do we keep that shielded as well?
Well, and again, the way this is written, I believe the intention certainly is that we're protecting the innocent. We're not going to disclose their information, but if there's somebody that's guilty, then that information would not be protected. It's going to go through the court process just like it would in any investigation. But currently we protect those donors. We don't disclose that. And this is just saying that even in an investigation of a potential violation, you cannot disclose those donors, just like we do today. It just protects the lawful without hurting them, but still bringing folks to justice that would violate this.
I kind of sense I've got a bill coming up at the end of here that kind of complements this on foreign funding of nonprofits. So this would kind of be a complement of your bill. Seems like you're making a valiant effort to address a potential problem. Any other questions? Seeing none, we will be voting on HB 008, sending on to state and local full. All those in favor vote yay, and vote no if you're opposed. Please open up the vote. Cast your vote. Madam Clerk, if everybody's happy with their vote, Madam Clerk, take the vote.
Mr. Chairman, you have 6 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you. Bill passes on to HB 0888, passes on to, I believe that's state and local full. Yes.
Can I make one more comment?
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you, committee. But I failed a few minutes ago on 886 to give credit to Representative Lynn. She has worked with me. She had a bill very similar, and we've kind of blended them together to make the best of both worlds. And she's been very supportive, signed on as co-sponsor. So I want to give her the credit she's due. She's fought this before and is very supportive.
Yeah, you both
Thank
have
you.
got with me and been in my office on several occasions talking about your bills, and I'm glad you were able to work together.
Thank you so much.
And I know Senator Briggs and state and local full is as well.
Number 4.
All right, we're next on to item number 4.
Motion.
We have a motion and a second on HB 0620 by Mr. Eldridge. You're at the podium. Do you have any amendments?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The amendment, I
don't
don't
think you
quite,
do.
this is the first time that I've had one of these come up. So you'll have to bear with me on that,
I don't
but I
see
don't
any
think there's
amendments.
anything.
So you've got want to tell us about your bill?
This bill is asking that Hamlin County be included into the pilot program that creates centralized voting stations throughout the county. And it's simply what it does. It is supported by resolutions that was voted on unanimously by both the Election Commission and the Hamlin County Commission. So,
And we have those letters here.
yes, and then we just ask for your support on that.
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you will be the 7th county requesting this, and it seems to have gone pretty smoothly in the counties that have adapted it. Is there any questions? We have a question on the bill. Any objections? Seeing none, we'll be voting on 0620. All those in favor say aye and say nay when we open the board. Please open the board for voting. Please cast your vote. Seeing if you want to change your vote, do it now. If not, clerk, please take the vote.
Mr. Chairman, you have 7 ayes.
Bill passes on to state and local full committee.
Thank you, Chairman and committee.
We're on to item number 6. Let me get to the number over here. That has been HB 0851 by Renault has been taken off notice. Item number 7, HB 0943 by Mr. Mitchell. Motion. We have a motion. We have a second. We have a second. You have, you see, you have an amendment?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
What's your number?
6542.
That's not what we have.
The last 4,
Yes,
where's it? 4114.
yes.
Okay, all right. Sorry.
We have a motion on adapting 414. You want that put on?
Yes, sir.
Any objections? We have a motion second on adapting 004114 to the bill. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Amendment is on the bill. Tell us about your amended bill.
Yes, sir. This is, we have a pretty low standard to be able to get on the ballot here in Tennessee. You have to go out and get 25 registered voters to sign on a petition and turn that in by a filing deadline. Well, here in Davidson County last time, we had 2 different candidates, one from each party, that probably didn't come anywhere close to 20, much less 25. We had on one petition, we had initials, like just 3 initials, like my initials are JRM. On multiple times, there was just 3 initials for a signature. At least one person misspelled their name. I don't know about y'all, but when I sign my name, I don't usually misspell it. Then on my opponent's petition, we had a husband, a wife, and multiple children. And then the 3 adult children's signatures looked awfully similar to the mother's signature on all of them. And one of them just happened to be on a battleship between San Diego and Hawaii when they supposedly signed a petition. So we contested that and had a hearing before the election commission, in which the coordinator of elections saw my opponent and people stand up and say they forged the petition. The petition was forged. Still waiting for the DA to get notified on that Class E felony. But it happens on both sides of the aisle. Like I said, we have a low standard in this state, and all this is saying is you have to sign the petition just like you signed your voter registration card. It's not asking for much. And I'll let you know if you do have to contest it, it costs over $5,000 for a handwriting expert in this state. And that's still, even though you have an expert telling your election commission that these signatures are forged, they still don't always listen. Or even when they have the people stand up and admit they forged the signatures, they always don't go by. But, people ought not be able to print their name. They shouldn't be able to put initials. They should at least be able to spell their name correctly on the petition. But once it goes to your election commission, your county election commission, the state has no written guidance to give to your local elected officials on how to proceed with that contested procedure. Davidson County, we have a lawyer who's in the minority. She had to literally make up all the guidelines, and the election commission agreed upon it because the state has none. So, this is just trying to put something in the code, protect everybody on both sides of the aisle, that people ought to be able to get 25 registered voters without forging any signatures. And that's all my bill does.
So do you feel it's going to be like it says print name as it appears on the voter registration card, like you filled it out?
My name is James R. Mitchell. On how I registered to vote. And if I sign a petition, I better sign that petition, James R. Mitchell.
Well, I got a question that everybody here is wondering, what's R stand for?
Robert.
Oh, that's what I thought it might, but now what's this about? You said initials?
No initials.
Nicknames, abbreviations, none of that said variations, none of that's allowed.
Right. However you signed your election registration card, if you signed it your first name, middle initial, last name, or if you signed it your middle name, or however you signed that voter registration card, you know how you signed that card.
Now there's 2 things. I'm trying to make sure we're talking about the same thing. There's fill out the card and there's sign the card. It may be like I'm Timothy Dale Rudd and I may fill that out on the card, but I signed Tim Rudd.
How you signed it.
Do I have to sign it? All right, but it says print name as it appears on the card. It doesn't say whether it's signature or the handwritten, because you fill it out and then you sign it.
Well, if you think we need to amend it.
Well, I don't know. I'm asking you. I didn't know what your intention was.
No, my intention is however you sign it, that should match. The state election coordinator shouldn't be able to run to the Department of Safety and ask for people's driver's license to ask how they sign their driver's license, to help somebody get on the ballot. Shouldn't happen. That should not be allowed.
I guess so. Any members, because I was wanting to get that clarified from you. I think we have one person to testify to clear up any questions. If we want to go out of session to hear from Director of Elections, Mark Goins.
Love
I hear
to.
some mess, so we can answer between the sponsor and Mark. We can answer questions. Are there any objections going out of session? Seeing none, we are going out of session. And if Mark Goins, Director of Elections, would come up, he can answer any questions. I think between the two of you, we can get all the answers to our questions.
Yeah, Mark Goins, Coordinator of Elections. First off, we do have procedures. The commissioner that made the motion, she essentially made a motion to the procedures that we'd put in place. In fact, we'd used those procedures in Roane County prior, used them in Knox County. So the statement that we don't have procedures is incorrect, and basically that was what was followed in Davidson County. Prior to Mr. Mitchell's, Representative Mitchell's opponent, the hearing, the individual in question that he's talking about where the father signed for the individual that's in the Navy, that was on a Navy ship, he requested specifically that petition signature not be counted, so it wasn't counted. And in fact, the 25 signatures that verified Mr. Mitchell's opponent was done in a bipartisan manner. I want to let you know what this legislation does, because what he's explained is sort of close, where he says that a nominating petition actually by state law, and he goes into this section, he goes into the specific section. I'll read to you the language. Nominating petition shall be signed by the candidate and 25 signatures or more registered voters who are eligible to vote to fill this office. Representative James Mitchell, R. Mitchell, just told you that's his name. That's how he is on the voter registration form. So if you pass this legislation, he will not be able to run as Bo Mitchell. He has signed that form that his name is Bo Mitchell, but that's not his legal name. The statute gives leadway. Now, I will tell you that the statute, the examples, I was not aware that was his legal name until today. The statute gives legal examples of what we can accept. For example, Chairman Rudd, if you're Timothy Rudd, we can accept Tim Rudd. That is your regular name. We can also accept your legal name. So if someone were to run as a regular name, then they could do it. Very specifically, I want to make sure you understand what he is doing is that candidate petition that you sign out, that you put your signature on, that you print your name, he is basically changing it to say, whatever that says on that voter registration card, that's how you're going to have to run. We'll have 400 to 6,000 people that will be on the ballot next year. That means the Roberts that's running as Bob, they'll have to run as Robert. He'll have to run as Representative James Mitchell. The Senate sponsor currently runs under her maiden name. She does not run on the name that she has on her voter registration card, which is her married name. So this little bitty teeny bill that he has got up here to explain will impact thousands, and it will impact a pretty decent amount sitting here on this committee. And more importantly, Representative James Mitchell will have to run as his legal name, Representative James Mitchell. I can't help that he signed his form in the past as Bo. I'm just telling you going forward, if this passes, he will be known on the ballot as, and if that's what he wants to do, if that's his thought process, if that's what he wants to do, I want to be very clear. If he puts on if he puts on this nominating petition that he wants to be run as his legal name, that's currently allowed under law already. So if he wants to run as Representative James Mitchell, he's more than welcome to do so. The other thing that I did, I took the liberty to look at his nominating petition. He had 43 signatures, which we recommend 50, so that's very good. But when we looked at it, if his bill were to become law, 28 of them would not have been good. He would have had 15 good signatures because there's a lot of individuals that signed his petition that just signed it using their first initial and last name. So anyway, that's what this legislation does. I just want to make sure everyone understood exactly what he does. State law requires 26 signatures, the candidate, and 25 other signatures. And by the way, we have had a person that's been disqualified because their signature didn't match as a candidate. So that is something that we look at as well. Anyway, I'm happy to take any questions that you have.
So what you're saying currently under the current law, which each individual county election commission may properly enforce and know the law or may not, but the current actual state law as it is it gives you some flexibility.
Yeah, oh, no, I'm not saying that the individual counties don't know the law. They knew the law. The procedures that were adopted was procedures that we'd used before. In fact, they're mentioned in a Supreme Court case from a Roane County case that we had. No, the counties are very astute. Here you had a situation where the two people that were being challenged, they didn't get the recommended 45 to signature, 50 signatures. They had just a few. And so someone challenged some of the signatures that were on there. It then becomes a question of whether someone has to have their legal name. Under state law, you do not. You can have your legal name or your regular name. And that's the current process that we have. And so he's changing that to say that whatever's on your voter registration card, like for example, his is James R. Mitchell, then he would have to run as James R. Mitchell and he would have to sign the petition as James R. Mitchell.
Any questions on the members? Mr. Bricken?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I didn't know there was a list.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Maybe two questions here.
Yes.
Is there currently some other legislation coming about, might not be dealing with petitions issues, but clarifying the quality of signatures on that a citizen, I'm gonna call it because I think handwriting's gone to hell in a handbasket in this world. So I don't see how anybody can match signatures very well anyway. But is there legislation affecting the legibility of signatures on election cards?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. At least one other piece of legislation. Representative Kiesling has some legislation that kind of gets to this.
Okay. But in dealing with the ballot on a petition, again, it kind of ties in it, the quality of the signature that someone signs on the petition.
That's right.
It's, as we all have passed petitions, can be sometimes on a hood of a car, could be just scribbles. And I don't, again, it's up to the election commission to say that that signature is close enough to what they have on file versus what's not. That's totally in their discretion, right?
It is. Well, we have some training on that. There's some training, actually borrowed it from another state. And then we've adapted training from that. But, you're looking for strokes. It is very difficult. Some of these folks have been arrested for some time after that time, came in and said someone shouldn't be able to run as low tax. And so you put a standard in there. If it's confusing or misleading, they can't do it. And in fact, there was a guy that legally changed his name to none of the above. And so he would have appeared on the ballot as none of the above. And I was on the state election commission at the time. We refused to let that gentleman run as none of the above. He had to run as David Gatchell, even though his legal name had been changed by a court. He sued, he lost, and the court upheld that standard that if it's, none of the above would have been confusing or misleading.
Okay, but, and I understand there's some exceptions to that, but on the whole, Representative Mitchell could just re-sign his voter card, Bo Mitchell, and then he could appear on the ballot. I mean, I'm not getting into names. I don't know a Bo that's not a Robert. Maybe I'm mistaken on that, but I think it's a pretty common name for Roberts to go as Bo. I just think that if you wanted to allow that, certainly he could certainly just change the signature on his registration card to then run as Bo Mitchell.
Perhaps. I mean, like the other thing with voter registration, there are certain things we run it against, and so it might create a false flag. Certainly, someone like a better example is Timothy Rudd versus Tim Rudd. That's something that we see, often. Where people Robert's Rob. That's a little different.
Okay, and just back to, I guess, the method for which people then check. Can you speak to like what standard does exist? Because I mean, I'm familiar with obviously what happened this last election, the registration process. But I find it troubling that there is not a sort of protocol in place for when you have these ballots. I mean, oftentimes, and look, there's multiple problems in my view. It goes beyond just his situation. I mean, somebody could drop off a ballot, get certified on day one with 26 certified signatures, get approved, and then after the fact, somebody could challenge them after the process is closed, and like, well, I got approved. I qualified on day one, and then we come back and the process is already closed. So I think there's a lot of problems, and I guess I have an issue with the process, and just wanted to see if you could speak to that a little bit more clearly, because it's concerning to me as somebody, anybody on this committee, any of my colleagues, again, could turn in a petition and then it'd be challenged after the fact they got approved.
That's not an unrealistic concern. That's why I always tell people to get more than 25, but you probably know John Ariola. I served with John Ariola in the legislature.
I'm in his seat. His former, he was District 53 as well.
So John Ariola actually had done exactly what you said. He had turned in his petition several years ago. I wasn't here, but I've read the case. He turned in his petition in February. He was disqualified later on. He took it to court, and the court said, because you detrimentally relied upon the election commission, we're going to place you on the ballot. And so John Ariola was allowed to run, and if I'm not mistaken, I think that's how he actually became a legislator. But the thing is, like I say, I can't emphasize it enough. We tell individuals, get more than 50. There are some standards that we go through and look at, but mainly you're just looking for certain characters as best you can to determine whether that signature should count or not.
Okay. I guess just final thing is, and I get even you have 50 signatures, but even those could get thrown out. I just think we need to have more definite protocols in place. I think this is a good attempt at that. Because when somebody signs that petition, I think there's a lot of gray area here. And, just speaking for myself, is the election commissions across the state or the majority party gets to have the majority on those election commissions. And I'd hate to see a situation where, that could be abused. And I think we need to really put in some protocols in place to kind of to make sure that that we're following that. And I haven't even gone back and looked at my own nominating petition. I'm sure some people probably signed without their full name. It might look different. I know people get in a rush. Sometimes my signature is really sloppy. Sometimes it looks consistent. But we need to really think through that to make sure that we don't have a situation that happened as Representative Mitchell where, somebody might have taken great liberties with that nominating petition and qualified and they shouldn't have. And let me say one final thing, if I could, Mr. Chairman, is I also empathize with the workers at the Election Commission because they've got a yeoman's task. I know often somebody brings in, in my county, they'll bring in dozens of petitions here at the very last second. Everybody's biting their nails, wondering if who's going to qualify and who's not. Sometimes people don't make the threshold. Sometimes they do. And they've got to make that determination. And a lot of that is on them. And that's a tough job, tough task that we're putting on them. So I appreciate everybody in Davidson County that's doing that. And it's, unfortunately, it's a difficult situation.
Yeah.
Next up, Mr. Leatherwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So you're saying this bill would not only impact the names on the nominating petitions, but this bill would also impact the candidate's name on the ballot?
Well, because if you look at the statute, this is a language. Nominating petitions shall be signed by the candidate. That's the first signature. And 25 or more registered voters who are eligible to vote to fill the office. And that's the statute that he is going into. He's going into B, and that's the very first sentence of B. I do want to address something that Representative Powell said, because I think it's very important. In 16 years, we've had over 25,000 people that's qualified for elective office. So 25,000 people, there's been 4 challenges, 4 that I know of. 2 of them were in Davidson County. So it's very rare that you see this type of challenge. And to get to this type of challenge, it means that typically someone has been that means that they've been told, yes, you've qualified. And then their opponent would come in and say, no, you haven't. And I also want to thirdly address where you said the majority of the election commission is one way. I was there for that vote, and it was a bipartisan vote to place Representative Mitchell's candidate on the ballot.
And just curiosity, does the signature on your voter registration have to match your signature on your driver's license?
It does not. There's nothing that requires that match that I'm aware of.
Okay. And just, I don't have a clue how I signed my voter registration card. I didn't know how I signed my driver's license, so I pulled it out and just looked, and I could be another one of those complicating factors. I'll admit it here, but my name is Thomas Floyd Leatherwood III. I just soon not appear that way on the ballot. I just go by Tom Leatherwood, and that is actually how it's on my driver's license, but I don't have a clue how it is on my voter registration card.
Yeah, and to be clear, I mean, the way this works, whatever's on your voter registration, it says you have to print. And so where you run, you have to print exactly what's on your voter registration. That's the language of his amendment. Where you print on the form is the ballot name. And then you would have to sign by your legal name as well. So.
Any other questions before we go back into session?
I have one more.
If not, oh, Mr. Powell.
And just one, if I could respond to that. I appreciate the fact that, Davidson County was bipartisan. I'm just saying, you always got to watch. There could be concerns that I have with that, with one party has control. And I get, I don't think that was the case here. I'm not implying that, but it is a concern. And the last thing is, just because we have 4 people that have challenged it, they have every right to do that. I think we should protect that right. I think Representative Mitchell was right to go look at his ballot and question that, especially when it's on the line. Maybe more people will take a look at this more closely, but I think that's an important thing. We have all these different pieces of legislation up here that impact voting, but yet it's still pretty loosey-goosey, in my opinion, when it comes to qualifying for the people that we're actually voting for. So we should really think about that. And I'm not saying, his bill addresses all that, but it makes an attempt to put in some guardrails to get at that problem. So thank you.
Thank you.
Back to the sponsor. No further questions.
Yeah, thank you.
Excuse me. We're going back into session. We're now back in session, sir. Had to get it proper form.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And, let's go back to the statement I said earlier. Don't miss this statement. On top of the petition, there is a TCA code saying any forgeries on this document is a Class E felony. My opponent, in his witness, stood up under oath in the Davidson County Election Commission. And I'm glad you said on top of a hood of a car, because that's exactly where it happened. Forged signatures on top of a hood of a car. We talk about election integrity. I don't care if it's Democrat, Republican, or Al Qaeda. If someone says they forged their petition, if we're going to uphold election integrity in this state, it's the duty of some people to uphold election integrity in this state, whether it's a Democrat, Republican running against each other, if it's a Democratic primary, or if it's a Republican primary. Election integrity is election integrity. A felony is a felony. Bottom line. So, this isn't a Democratic bill. This isn't a Republican bill. This is to uphold our election integrity. And it is to bring attention to when someone says they forged a document in front of an official in this state, I expect something to happen. That's the bottom line. And I happen to have a state issued ID here that says Bo Mitchell on it. So I don't know if that's going to get me off or not. I think Russ probably has one that says Russ on it. So anyone else who may need, okay, all right. Well, and I've got a lot of neighbors who have signed petition since 2007. They've probably signed my petition, the same 30 people, probably 11 times. And believe me, I've looked and I know those 30 people and I know how their voter registration is and I know how they sign their signature. He can come up with 18 all he wants. That's untrue. And I can bring you two, a Democrat member of the Election Commission and a Republican member of the Election Commission said they got no guidelines in Davidson County to hold their procedures. So with that being said, I renew my motion on this bill. This is for both sides of the aisle.
And next up is that, well, we have one more. We have a very honored and distinguished individual, Mr. Wright, wanted to say something.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm going to take up for Rush for having a 4-letter first name because see, it's even
Pardon
more,
me.
it's even more complicated than I thought then, because my 4-letter name is my first name. And sometimes I sign using my middle name when it's all three. Sometimes it's first name, middle initial, last name. I agree with someone that has made the comment earlier. I don't know what my voter registration card says, but I do go to vote and I hand my driver's license, and you said you didn't know why driver's license were being called forward and trying to verify names. I think that what we're doing is opening a huge can of worms that's going to make, as we had illustrated here, a lot of names then that get thrown out whenever we do have guidelines in place across the state and election commissions that have got us to where we are. And I think we're in as measured by national goals, our elections are pretty good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Actually, we have, the sponsor has 14 seconds left on his time. I'm just kidding. Back to the sponsor.
Representative Wright, but I can rest assured, I would be very confident that you spell your name correctly, unlike names that were on the petitions. And I can rest assured no one's going to stand up under oath and say they signed your name for you. That's part of the problem we have here. There's ways of correcting things like that, but I don't know any other way except putting strictly in the code how someone has to sign, because we're having people stand up under oath saying they committed a felony, and that's not solving the problem. So I guess we got to solve the problem in the TCA.
I heard a voice of wisdom and knowledge. Okay, I have a question on the bill. We have a question on the bill. Any objections? If not, we are voting on HB 0943 as amended. Madam Clerk, please open the board for voting. And please cast your vote. Yes, if you approve. No, if you do not. Please take the vote.
Mr. Chairman, you have 1 aye, 4 noes, and 2 present not voting.
Thank you. Noble effort. Bill fails.
Hey, thank y'all. Appreciate it.
I need to clarify one thing. I misspoke earlier on HB 133 by Warner. I said it's going to calendar. It's going to special calendar. I want to clarify that, members. We'll have a point of clarity. HB 139 by Representative Warner will go to the special calendar to be published with the final calendar. Next up is, I believe we hand this to, we hand the power over to Mr. Wright. See, he doesn't need this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We now have before us HB 611, Chairman Rudd. We have a motion and second. Chairman Rudd, you present your bill.
Thank you. You said earlier, when Chairman Todd presented his bill, I said I had a complimentary bill on foreign funding, and that's what this is. This is an NGO bill. That's a non-governmental organization election reform. This forbids foreign money from to be given to a candidate's campaign or to promote that campaign or in any way participate in that campaign. So this complements and covers what area his did not cover. And with that, again, what we have here is we have a lot of nonprofits that are not really reportable to a lot of entities that could be funding by foreign money that are promoting or interfering in our elections, and this would outlaw that in Tennessee. So that's all it does. It prevents nonprofits from taking foreign money and engaging in our campaigns or our elections.
We have question that has been called on the bill. Is there any objection to the question? If not, you'll be voting aye to pass the bill, no to oppose the bill. Madam Clerk, open the ballot. You're voting on House Bill 611. Close the ballot and announce the results, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Chair, you have 6 aye and 1 present not voting.
The ayes have it. House Bill 611 moves on to State and Local Government Committee.
Mr. Vice Chairman, you can close this out.
Do I have any other personal notes from the members?
Motion adjourned.
Motion to adjourn has been made. Without objection, we're adjourned. Thank you.